Hey everyone, what's going on? I am Tim Burzens from Amplified Vitality, and in today's video, I want to walk you through a process that's really helped me to release a lot of resistance psychologically, and then of course that carries over into the physical realm as well. Because if you're repeating psychological patterns over and over again, then the energy that is you is being channeled through the physical organism in a way that has certain blocks or certain resistances that manifest themselves as disease and as physical impediments. So we're going to talk all about this process. I'm going to walk you through it. It's really, really helpful, and it helps you to just release a lot of maybe things that you're resisting, things that you're holding yourself against, things that you wish you could lift so that you could feel happy despite the circumstances, rather than trying to directly change them and make the world fit your mold so that you could be happy. You instead allow reality to be as reality is, and then do your part to meet reality on its terms so that you can be happy anyway. And then, of course, as you do that, you realize that your relationship with reality is actually a negotiation, and it's not something that you either dictate to reality or reality dictates to you, but that once you come to this agreement and this working relationship with it, that you can influence certain things within reality, but you also have to accept that certain things within reality are the way they are, and that you have to agree to them in that way. So before I really dive into this process, I do want to let you all know I have made some updates to my Patreon account. I stopped doing the monthly newsletter because I wanted to create something where I could share more information on a regular, ongoing basis, my research reviews that I do, different articles. Some of that premium content I want to be able to release on a more ongoing basis, while at the same time providing you guys with the ability to get in on that community and build that interactive and engaging community without necessarily having to do the price point that I had set for the monthly newsletter. I feel like this is a much better way to approach it. So the tiers on my Patreon have been updated. They're more affordable for you. There's going to be ongoing articles and research reviews being posted. I plan on basically doing it in a way where as I research things, I drop the articles, drop the posts, drop the research reviews, so that you all can keep up to date with what I'm researching, and instead of having to wait between these videos as we have been doing that. So if any of that interests you, please head over to my Patreon and the link below. And as always, all of your support is really, really helpful. Helps me to be able to continue to produce this content without having to worry so much about the finances. It helps me to upgrade my equipment, and it helps me to continue my research to help share with you, of course. So now let's dive into this process. So initially, this started from the book that I recommend on a lot of different podcasts that I do, and I've recommended to all my clients. I've talked about on this channel, Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. The reason I like this book so much is because it does such a very objective and rational explanation of how this process of letting go and surrender works. And so it's not necessarily that there's something unique about the process that he's talking about or about the actual mechanism of letting go. This is something that's talked about in psychological circles. Jung talks about it. A lot of spiritual circles, a lot of anything that has to do with your psychological and emotional growth talks about releasing trauma, releasing resistance, releasing pain. And so the actual idea is not necessarily new, but I feel like he explains it very, very succinctly in a very good way in that book. So one part of the book, towards the end, there's a Q&A section, and somebody basically asks, he says he's a teacher, he's dealing with some students that annoy him, and he wants to release the annoyance so that he can be a better teacher. And that obviously that makes sense. I mean, this is a simple pattern to think about. If you're teaching someone and you're constantly feeling like this negativity of like, oh, why are you like this? I can't get through to you. There's this wall, there's this resistance. Releasing that resistance is going to open you up to be able to be a much better teacher. And it's going to take off the blinders that negativity is providing so that you can see a much broader perspective of how to handle the situation to get the desired outcome for both you and for the student. So he's asking, I have this annoyance, I can't get rid of it. I'm trying to get rid of it and I just can't. So what do I do? And the response is basically something along the lines of this. The first thing to do is accept that all negativity is an inherent price of being human. And that means that as humanity, we have egos, we have psychological structures that are based on our physical survival of our organism and aren't necessarily the broader collective view that's going to be best for the whole, best for the higher outcomes. This is basically what I talk about when I'm saying the stress metabolism versus the healthy metabolism. It's the same pattern because the stress is honing into survival in this moment, and it's not a long-term play, Whereas the healthy state, the expanded state, the collective state is one where reciprocity is really, really important, where you recognize that you can't exist on your own. You need help from others. We need to have this society of exchange so that we can not only just exist, but we can create higher and higher paradigms of existence within society in order to experience more expression, higher expressions of life, whether that be the ability to create new art forms like higher levels of cinema, or new art forms in drawing and in painting and things like that. Without a cohesive society that could support people to have those individual roles to be able to express themselves like that, we wouldn't be able to do so. Everyone would be so worried about their own individual survival. Like considering back in medieval times, there wasn't as much art being produced. There wasn't as much enjoyment in life because everyone was just so focused on survival. The ability to take the focus off of survival now puts us in a place where we have the ability to focus on more of these higher type of paradigms that can create more beauty, more joy within life for everyone. Of course, this also comes with, as a little side tangent, this also comes with the downside that if you're not always focused on survival, it also allows the room for your psychology to dip into negativity and into feel like you don't have a purpose. And so we're at a time right now where that's starting to become very apparent. There's a choice, down or up, but you can't stay where you are. And so the first step in releasing this resistance and releasing that negativity that you might have with someone, comparing this to your own life, trying to take the pattern and the problem of the annoyance with the student and applying it into your own life, finding similar areas that connect, is to recognize that negativity is an inherent part of humanity, and that the price you pay of being human is to exist within that ego structure that needs survival, and therefore have to deal with that negativity and that enclosure from that stress survival type of mode. So as soon as you do that, there's an initial lifting that happens, because while the negativity, and in this case the annoyance, is there and you're pushing against it and you want it to go away, you are actually strengthening it by doing so. It's sort of like if you imagine that there's the king of the kingdom and a peasant comes up with their own personal problems that they're yelling at the king and blaming on the king for their own personal problems that aren't really a result of the way that the king's ruling the kingdom. It's the peasant's own problem. Well, if the king gets off of his throne and comes down to the peasant and starts arguing with him, he's actually legitimizing the position of that peasant. He's actually saying, yeah, I should have changed something in your personal life. It was my responsibility and I didn't do it. Whereas if the king recognizes the peasant is working through his own stuff, but this isn't something that I need to fight, I can let it go. And then from that position, he doesn't legitimize the peasant's plea. So the basic work is you recognize that who you really are behind the person is this king of the kingdom. And you can't necessarily let yourself fall into fighting these problems that will work themselves out through the natural flow of nature without giving away your power. And so if something's annoying you and you have some negativity and you try to fight it and try to make it go away, you're actually saying you have power, and because you have power, I have to fight you. But if you recognize that the power is entirely given to it by you, then now when you approach it, you say, I'm not going to give you the power. I'm going to let you wean yourself down. I've used this analogy before too. I think I got it originally from Muji Baba, who is an excellent meditation teacher, spirituality teacher on YouTube. If you've not heard of him, go check him out. Really, really great. He uses the analogy that a fan spinning and you turn the power off to the fan, it's going to keep spinning for a while, but eventually it's just going to slow down and it'll eventually stop. That's how all psychological programs work. They need your attention. They need your power. And if you're fighting it, you're giving it your attention. If you come off of it and stop giving it your attention and just allow it to be there and just let it be, let it in, let it go, then it slowly loses its power because you're no longer giving it that energy. And that's really the point of all this, is that you hold the power, not the thing. So just from the mere acceptance of, okay, this is the price to pay for humanity, I accept that, I can let go. Well, just from that there, you've already started to let it go. And so now the next step is to take it a step further and actually invite it in and ask for more of it. And so the negativity is there, and you say, okay, this is the price that I pay for being human. This is the natural acceptance that has to happen. Now give me more of it, Because as you're giving it more of it, you're exacerbating the fact that you aren't affected by it, that you actually are asking for more. And so because you're doing that, you're continuing to pull yourself into that place of recognizing that you are not this thing, that you don't have to fight this thing, and that you have a higher power that comes from letting go. In the Tao Te Ching and in Taoism, they talk about this Wu Wei Wu, which is basically the art of non-doing. And by letting these things flow and by letting them work themselves out, you actually allow nature to release those things from your presence. It's often when we fight these things that we invigorate them, in the same way that I just talked about with power. And so when we fight these things, we create more problems than they need. If we were to just let them play out the way that they should, then they would not result in these big problems. So by inviting them in and recognizing that you are not the problem and that you hold all the power and don't need to fight the problem, you actually create a situation where now you're transcending the negativity by doing so, by inviting it in. And this is really important because you can't get rid of it by fighting it. That's the thing that so many people try to do, and it only makes it worse. And so, as long as I've been researching this and starting to learn this and experiment with meditation and these things in my life, there are still things that I just take for granted as natural aspects of reality that I haven't necessarily realized is an aspect of me pushing against something. And so the ongoing path is to continue to investigate your inner mystery and find those things within yourself that are the resistant points. And as you start to let those go, you release into this space, and you have this flexibility and this limberness to your emotional body. Very similar to how when you stretch, you create stretching, you create an openness of space within the physical body. And then now the physical body is less prone to injury because it's flexible and limber. It can take the hits from life without necessarily resisting it and then getting hurt, because the physical organism, as it resists, will get injured. Whereas if it kind of gives into it, then it will relax and it won't be hurt. The same thing happens with the emotional body in this exact same way. So the more that you can stay in this open, relaxed, resistance-free place, then the more emotionally viable you will remain, to put it that way. So I want to take this even a step further, though, and say that it's not just the negativity that you have to accept as a price for being human, but there is, of all the negativity, there are different psychological structures that each individual person will embody based on their conditioning or based on their integration from growing up. So from this place, you can recognize that your signature of resistance is unique to you based on your upbringing. And there are characteristic aspects that are synonymous again across different populations. Like the culture of America, for example, has its own inborn resistances that almost every single American has, as compared to Europe, as compared to Asia. And then there's all these other, subtitle, like anyone who's born feminine or anyone who's born masculine will have these different things. Anyone who is born with any sort of like physical defect, for example, all these resistances are kind of like inborn to these people, but they all add up to the individuality that is the person that you are. So you can take that signature of the resistance and actually say, this resistance is the price that I have to pay for being me. So I would say this is the resistance that when I have some sort of something come up that's a tension within me, resistance, then I want it to go away and I can't get rid of it. Just the acknowledgement right away that this is part of the price that I pay for being Tim. And being Tim in this moment, because obviously as you grow, you release different resistances as well. And so coming to that place, you get to realize this is the price I pay for being Tim in this moment. And by accepting that and just taking that as it is, instead of trying to fight it, I can come to a place of peace. And now when I come to a place of peace, everything changes. It's sort of like that saying, life is difficult until you accept that it's difficult, and then it's easy. So as soon as you just accept that that's the way it is, and that the resistance and the negativity that you have is a part of the price of being who you are, you release and you come back to a place of peace where now you can see the world differently, and avenues open up. The blindness recedes because that negativity is no longer honing your focus into an individual moment. It's now broadened to the longer span of things, the higher level, the transcended level that you can experience within reality. And so this is right now, this is my cue. This is the cue that I've been using throughout my life. As soon as something comes up that hits me and I feel this resistance, I feel the negativity, being constantly on the, like a hawk searching for any sort of resistance emotion, negative emotions that come up, using those negative emotions to say, oh, here's a point of growth. Here's something that needs my attention. And then when that comes up, saying, okay, this is part of the price that I pay. Now I can look at it and form a relationship with it. And as I do that, begin to release it. And it's not something that really I'm releasing. It's more of it releases on its own as I stop resisting it, so to speak. So hopefully in all of that, you got something really valuable. I hope that you start using this process yourself. It's so important. And once you have your first real big breakthrough using these kind of techniques, then you understand it a lot more. Because as soon as you do it, the space that I'm talking about, it's not easy to put into words. It's almost ineffable in a certain sense. And as you start to experience it for yourself, the joy and the peace of that state start to become something that you look forward to more and more. And that's why you start to use your attention to find the pieces of yourself that are holding on to negativity and holding on to resistance, sort of like scar tissue in a muscle that's just hard and calcified and wants to resist the flexibility and limberness of a normal muscle tissue. In the same way, that's happening to you from a psycho-emotional, mental-emotional type of place. So so anyway, I hope that you got something out of that. Please leave comments below. Let me know what you think of this video. Give me the thumbs up. Like I said, check out Patreon because I have a new structure I'm going to be doing there. I want to release a lot more premium content for you guys so we can have more of a back and forth and an interactive community. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I have lots of really cool videos to talk about, and I'm really excited to share them with you. And of course, share them with share them with anyone that you think might get something out of this. Because especially now in these times that we're dealing with, there's a lot of emotional intensity going on. There's pain, there's fear, there's anger coming out and things like that. Now's the time to be introspection. Now's the time to be reflecting on yourself and to be working through these things because it's the greatest opportunity to do so. If you have this negativity that's kind of under the surface and you can't see it, you can't do anything about it. But if an event like this is causing an upsurgence of all of this resistance, now's your opportunity to release it. It's a really good opportunity. And if you don't see it as the opportunity, then you see it as this huge problem that's going to bury you and burden you, and it just makes life not very enjoyable. So the option is yours. We're at this place, go down or go up. You have to choose. So with that, I hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your day. I look forward to hearing from you, and we will talk again soon. Peace.